Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, we will be talking about database migration strategies and how to version control your database migration scripts. You must be wondering what sort of problem this is and why do we even need to worry about this problem. Okay, I'll give you one quick example and then you will appreciate what the real problem is and why do we really need to solve this problem. Let's say I have an application, some sort of e-commerce application. I'm calling it eShop. Okay, and it is backed by a relational database. Okay, so let's take an example. Let's say you are the sole developer of that application, and this application is very small because you kind of literally starting right now. So you are tightly controlling everything. You are controlling the code as well as you are controlling the database. Okay, so first time you built everything and you gave it, you start checking and stuff, and then automatically it's picked up by your CI/CD pipeline, and then it's able to test. Once you're happy, you probably passed on to the next environment and you have asked people to start testing it. Okay, maybe you gave some instruction that, okay, you know what, for the first time this is how you should be building the database. For example, you may have given some sort of DDL script, you may have given some sort of maybe a DML script because you want to populate some sort of reference data. At this point everything is good, people can follow your instruction. Let's say you even manage to put this into production. Okay, you gave instructions saying can you please release maybe 1.0 with this script. Everything is good at this point. As soon as your application grows, okay, or maybe you have more people joining into your team, this is where the problem starts to come. Let's take this particular example. Let's say another team has now joined this project, okay, and they have started building some new set of features. As soon as people start checking in, the first thing comes, okay, what sort of database version I am using. Maybe you said, okay, you know what, this is the DDL, this is the DML, and they have probably built their environment. Now let's say they are, as I said earlier, they are adding new features, so they maybe need to add a new table, or maybe they need to kind of change some column which was from the the earlier 1.0 version. Okay, so they will say, okay, look, I'm creating my own DDL script. They probably give it to CI/CD pipeline, or maybe they will give it to another testing team. For some, let's say even this managed to make it to production. But now, can you see a problem over here? The changes which is done by this particular team over here, they might not be able to communicate to you. Okay, as application grows in complexity, then maybe you are managing one set of features, another team is managing another set of feature. Let's say you even have more clients. Okay, you have added more and more clients, and they need slightly different features. Source code probably will be the same, but they have probably different database scripts, and this is where the problem starts to come. Why the problem is coming? Because as far as code is concerned, your source code is concerned, you are managing the source code through some sort of Git or any other code versioning system. But what you are not doing is you are not managing the database script. You might say, oh, I can check in the database scripts as well, but if somebody asks you, okay, I have 5 versions of database scripts, which one should I apply? How should I apply the changes incrementally automatically? You will not be able to communicate this information in some sort of automated way. Do you understand the problem over here? Okay, you can't always tell people, especially in a large enterprise system, you can't always go and tell people that, okay, you know what, as far as code is concerned, or these scripts are concerned, this is the version you need to apply. You need to add this column, or you need to add this table. It becomes super complex, okay, because you have multiple CI/CD pipelines going on, multiple testing teams are there, plus you have multiple customers you're trying to support. So you can just appreciate how quickly this problem start to surface up. Okay, and this sort of question people start asking you is, what state is the database on my machine, or CI or production? Do you remember? You probably have come across this question. Has this script already been applied or not? How do I know? Okay, let's say I told one person, but maybe next day that person is on holiday. Another colleague is basically, let's say, filling up that role. How would that person know? Okay, they can't always dig emails or go back to the chat. You need some sort of automated way of informing your colleagues or the people who are supporting your application. Has the quick fix in production been applied in test afterwards? What does that mean? Maybe we found some sort of bug in our database. Maybe the index was missing, or column was wrong, or you had to kind of change the size of a column, or you may have to add some sort of missing reference data. So how do we ensure that the change which I am applying, or a hot patch which I am applying, it has made to some sort of secure version control, right? How do you set up a new database instance, for example? How do I tell my people that, okay, you know what, I have these scripts, in which sequence I should be executing those? How do I apply new changes everywhere? Let's say I have some legacy systems running. I'm adding a new table, I'm adding a new column, I'm maybe changing a size of some column field. Okay, how do I apply these changes everywhere? I may have maybe 60, 70, 80 machines where this stuff is running for different people. How do I roll back? Let's say you added a column, okay, or you added some sort of reference, or maybe you created a new table. Now you are backing up your code. How do you back up the database changes automatically? So these are all the questions or all the problems which we come across day to day, and we need a better way to fix this very problem. All right, so if somebody has this question, and if somebody asks you these questions, what will be your answer? I don't know. The reason why you don't know, because you don't have a process, you don't have automated process to manage or answer all these above questions. Make sense? I hope you are with me up to this point, and you are trying to realize or understand what is the business problem we are trying to solve over here. Okay, so how do we fix this problem? We understood the problem, but how do we fix it? This is where database migration tools come. So what sort of answer these tools give us? You can recreate a database from scratch with confidence. If part of the database has been created, again you would like to resume from there rather than completely wiping off, right? Always make it clear what state a database is in, what version of database scripts you have applied. Just remember one thing: just putting database scripts into a Git or source control system is not going to solve your problem. Let's say I have version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever those files. How do I tell people that, you know what, version number 5 or version number 6 has been applied to this environment but not to this environment, or you need to apply this to this environment or to the other environment? This is the problem we are trying to solve over here. Migrate in a deterministic way from your current version of the database to a new one. All right. There are several tools available at the moment. Okay, some of them are really good. Some of them are paid ones, some of them are open source. So this is a list. Like I just try to build here, like, okay, what market leading frameworks or tools are available. One which comes naturally in mind is Liquibase. Yeah. Then you have a Flyway. Okay, you have DBMate, you have Apache's Nifi, you have Evolve, you have Ladder, and there are several other. The one which we are going to look today, and I'm not going to say that this is my favorite, but I quite like it. It's easy to use, and it has various ways of executing that tool. And the tool of my choice for this video is Flyway. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I have read the Flyway documentation. It's quite rich, quite nice. So what I did, basically, I took some examples from there, and I'm just going to show you those examples. If you wish, you can go to their website and try to read the latest version of the documentation. So how does Flyway works? So Flyway works in a very simple way. Okay, so as you can see over here, this is our Flyway framework. Flyway uses something called migration scripts. Okay, they are very much like SQL scripts, but it pretty much it calls it migration. So you have migration scripts. Okay, and if I try to move this camera over here, maybe you can see it. Yeah. So when Flyway starts, it sees, okay, database is empty, there is nothing. Okay, this is like, say, happy scenario. Then what it's really going to do is, if I could move my video a little bit. Okay, yeah, it's saying yes, database is empty, happy days. It's just gonna create a table called Flyway schema history. What this table is and why do we need this table, I'll try to explain in detail as we move on. Basically, this is the table where it's actually going to keep the state of your changes. Does it make sense now? The problem we have been facing so far is we are not storing the state anywhere, because that's what you want to communicate to your colleagues, right? But what Flyway is going to do now is going to keep that state in this default table called Flyway schema history. If you want, you can change the name of the table, but that's the default table, by the way. When you run the migration, the Flyway migration, what it's simply going to do is it's going to take the changes from your migration files, the SQL files, and it will start applying those changes, and it will store that information as a version 1 in the history table. Quite simple concept, but then it very nicely, very elegantly by Flyway. Okay, so let's say in this shiny database, I have the schema version table. It was empty, but when I applied the changes, now it got version 1, and it has, let's say, created these 3 tables for me. When I apply new changes next time, it's gonna increment the version in the history table, and as you can see, I get 2 more new tables very nicely. This is how a history table looks like. This is the example from my machine. Okay, and as we do workshop is really coming soon. Okay, I'm just trying to cover the theory over here, just to build the basically a concept, so you are absolutely clear what we are really trying to do over here. Okay, Flyway supports pretty much all the big database or the enterprise level database, open source database, Oracle SQL Server, in-memory databases, you name it, DB2, H2, MySQL, Postgres, everything is pretty much which is available right now commercially or open source. It's supported by Flyway. All right. One thing which Flyway has is it's called command. Okay, what are these commands? Basically, you have a bunch of commands. Okay, and they are quite simple, like migrate. You want to migrate from your SQL to actual database, version 1, version 2, etc., which we saw just now. Second thing it has is you can clean your database very nicely, very elegantly, right? Because let's say in test environment you would like to start from scratch. You just run Flyway command saying, please clean everything for me. It's just gonna drop all the tables for you. Okay, very nice, elegant way of cleaning the database and making it ready for your testing purposes, even production. Why not? Okay, if you just want to get information that, okay, what is the current state of my database migration, you can run this command. Okay, I'll execute that command for you. We'll see how it really looks like. Okay, and it's just gonna print a nice table saying, in version 1, this is what you did. In version 2, this is what you did. This was the time I executed this command. It was success or not. Okay, so that will be the answer you will be given by this particular command. You have a validate command. If you do not want to migrate just now, but you just want to validate that all the scripts which you have created, they are fine or not, and it's not gonna create any sort of clash in the database, you can run this particular command. There are 7 commands in total. Okay, and there is one called undo. So if you would like to, let's say, roll back your changes, you can do that. At the time of recording this video, undo option is a paid one. Okay, so you have to basically pay to get a license of Flyway, and then you can apply the undo or rollback commands, by the way. Yeah. Baseline. So what is baseline over here means, let's say you have an existing database. That can happen, right? Let's say you have a legacy application and now you would like to introduce Flyway to it. So what you can do is you can run this particular command called baseline, and it's gonna populate your history table with the current state of the database. Okay, otherwise if you, let's say you don't do that, then it might show some sort of error saying, oh, this table already exists or this column exists, which you're trying to do, because it doesn't, it's not aware of that. Okay, so for legacy systems or existing databases, okay, you can run this baseline command. If you wish to repair something, let's say you were doing migration, it got failed, or maybe something went wrong during the migration, you could run this particular command called repair. Okay, so these were the 7 commands which I was talking about, from migrating to repairing to getting just information, cleaning, undoing, baselining, everything. Let's just get started. Let's start. Enough of theory part. Let's just kind of jump onto our code. So right now there are 4 ways, or at least these are the main ways I'm aware of, in which you can do Flyway database migration. One is command line. What is command line? You can install a CLI. You can download it from Flyway website. You can download it, okay, and then you can run those commands. Okay, so let's say like now your BizOps team, okay, or your operations team or your IT team can download this tool. You just give them your Flyway migration scripts. They can simply run those scripts with the command you tell them, and off you go. Okay, everything is kind of nicely done and managed for you. You can also run using Maven. Okay, so let's say for testing environment, for CI/CD pipelines, or some sort of maybe other lower environments, you can use Maven. If you wish, you can also automatically apply database changes using Java. So let's say you have a Spring Boot application. If you wish, you can, during your application startup, you can tell your application that please apply or do the migration. So I will show you one quick example how to use Java API to apply Flyway migration. Okay, this is a very nice way of automatically managing database schema during application startup. So just try to understand, the beauty here is, as you're deploying your changes, you don't need to ask anybody. As your application starts, it will automatically bring your database up to the version you need, your code supports, and your application will start. Okay, so depending, like if you are allowed, this is one way of doing it. Otherwise you can always ask your other teams to execute those changes for you. Docker container, again, if you're kind of testing something locally, or if Docker or Kubernetes etc. are supported in your environment, you can run Docker containers as well, which is a kind of let's say it sits between command line and Maven. So you have the Docker container, and then you can pass on the information and it will just apply those changes for you. All right, so what shall we do? So what I'm going to do is, I will start with command line. I'm not going to install the command line. Command line comes in a in a Docker container way as well. Docker comes in 2 flavors, one command line flavor, and one is like the actual container which is running, and you pass on all the information. So as your database is starting, it can work as well. So let's start very first thing, which is, let's see if I have the database up and running. So I've got Postgres up and running over here. The workshop I'm going to do is using a Postgres. So I've got Sagu UK over here. I've got Postgres. Okay, let's call it good news. I don't have database up and running. So let's say this is absolutely hands-on, starting from scratch. So first thing what we want to do is, we like to fire up or bring up our Flyway database. I'm a big fan of Docker. You've probably seen in my previous videos. So what we'll do, first thing first, we will try to run a Docker container, and we'll try to bring our Postgres up. So let's try to zoom in a screen a little bit so you can see it better. There we are. So I have a Docker compose file over here, as you can see. Okay, let's just try to kind of check the content of it. You can see over here I have Postgres. This code is available, by the way, if you go to github.com/jssagu or you just type sagu.uk in your browser. You know, I will redirect. It will redirect. Plus in the description of the video I will link where this code has been checked in, so you can actually check and see this Docker compose, so you don't have to type everything by hand. But this is the Docker container I'm going to run. So I'm simply going to say docker compose up -d, okay, Postgres. There we are. Okay, so our Docker, as you can see, container ID is this, Postgres is this, it's running from 2 seconds. So if I go back to dbweaver, if you don't know what dbweaver is, it's just a open source database management or database connectivity tool. It's quite powerful. I quite like it. If you just refresh it now, okay, as you can see, our database has been started. Just notice one thing, okay, we do not have any table at the moment. Okay, so this is a brand new database. I literally started in front of you. So first thing what we want to do is we want to run a database migration or database some sort of, you know, Flyway command. So let's start with info command, okay, because that's first thing you would like to see. What do you have in your database? So as I promised to you, I'm gonna show you this MacBook. Okay, so I'm gonna show you command line, I'm gonna show you Maven, I'm gonna show you Java. We'll try to run all these commands one by one using these various different utilities. So in order to run using Docker, what you simply need to do is you need to created this command. You just need to run this particular command. You can see this command in the readme of Spring tutorial video, which is linked in the description section. So what it is, basically, I'm simply saying docker run this Flyway container, connect to Postgres. Okay, this is the URL. This is my username, password, and what we want to do is, at this point, I just want to run a command called info. What am I expecting over here? I'm expecting, let's run it and then we'll see what happens. So as you can see, a table has been printed, which is saying no migration found, nothing is there. Okay, everything is empty. That's what we were expecting. But one thing you will probably notice now is, if I go back to our database, if I try to refresh it, how do I refresh? Okay, so yeah, as you can see, nothing. Actually, I thought it might create a version table, but of course it did not, which is fine. That's what we were expecting. So you can actually run all these commands like here. Now let's move on to the second way of doing it, which is a Maven way. Yeah, so I'm gonna kill this. I'm gonna step back. Where am I standing? pwd. Okay, so this is my Spring Boot tutorial. Over here now we have to run a Maven command. Before we run Maven command, we have to do a couple of things. One, we'll have to add a dependency. Okay, so we can tell Maven that, okay, this is the Flyway dependency, this, so it can download all the libraries, etc. Second, we will have to add Maven plugin. Okay, so if I take you to IntelliJ, here is our IntelliJ. So first thing you would have to do is you will have to add this dependency, group ID org Flyway db, Flyway Maven plugin, and at the time of recording this video, I'm using version 8.5.12. Okay, you might have a higher version, but it doesn't really matter. So you add this dependency. Once you have added this dependency, second thing you have to do in your pom.xml, you will have to add this plugin. Okay, it's quite simple plugin. It's saying org Flyway DB, Flyway Maven plugin, and of course this is the version. Yeah, all done, all good. Once you've done that, save. And now let's come back to our terminal, and I am now going to run a Maven command, and this is my Maven command. So it's saying Maven clean, okay, just in case code maybe has a dirty code or whatever. Now as you notice, I am passing a few properties over here. Let's just try to understand it. First, I'm passing config files. Okay, where is the configuration? So we are basically telling Maven how to connect to a database. Okay, what are the credentials, etc., etc. I'm not telling here you have to connect to Postgres. Okay, you have to do this or that, or what scripts you should be running. I'm simply saying, please go and read this conf file. Please go and read this file system where you will find all the files. Let's run this command first, see the output of it, and then we'll go and check our configuration file and the most important bit, the schema files. Okay, so let's run this. What are we expecting at this point? Because this is the first time we are doing the migration, so hopefully a history table will be created and I will be getting some sort of output. Okay, let's just try to understand the output over here. So it's saying successfully validated 2 migrations. Okay, it's creating some sort of public schema. It's saying successfully migrated 2 versions. See what's new, blah blah blah. One SQL migration was detected but it did not run. I'll explain that why it didn't do that. So everything has been executed successfully without any problem. So if we go back to the database now, and if I try to refresh it over here, I hope it's able to refresh it. What is going on? Let's just disconnect and try to reconnect it. It's just behaving a bit weird, because even last time info should have created a history table for us. So what is going on? Postgres is running, of course. Okay, let's see what happened here. So Flyway postgres.conf, I hope I passed this one. I made a mistake. What I should have done is, instead of passing the h2 in memory one, I should have passed Flyway Postgres, because as I said earlier, you can use in memory, you can use Postgres, you can use Oracle, whatever, because over here we have the Postgres database up and running, so we should have used this one. Okay, so if I rerun it, okay, so it's not liking it. Let's go back to the readme command. Maybe I got the username, password, etc. wrong. All part of learning, guys. Yeah, so nothing to worry too much. So let's just copy this command, the Maven one. Okay, even I can't remember all the commands all the time. So if I run this Postgres, okay, because in the previous command, the problem we have is the JDBC was wrong as well. Okay, so if I run this now, hopefully, fingers crossed, second time lucky, third time lucky, whatever you wanna call it. Okay, if I refresh it now, boom, there you are. So what you see here, very first thing, let's notice Flyway schema history. This is the history table which Flyway is managing for us. All right, so let's just have a look. If I open this history table, if you go to the data section, okay, I hope the size is decent enough for you to read. Let's maybe a little bit more big size. Okay, there it is. So it's saying version 1, create person table, type was SQL. This was the script name okay, and it's installed by this user, it installed on this, and it was successful. Perfect. Okay, and then it executed another script which was adding some people. So what really happened is create person table. So it created a person table for us. Then we had another script which added the data for us. So if I double click it for you, as you can see, this table got created and it has added an entry for me. Now this is the time we look at the configuration files. Also we try to understand the migration scripts, how do they look, and what sort of naming convention you need when you're creating those files. All right, so let's just quickly go back to our IntelliJ. If I minimize everything, first thing I'm going to open it for you is the Flyway postgres.conf file. So over here we are saying Flyway locations, i.e. where are the SQL files which Flyway needs to read, what is the URL, okay, the JDBC URL of your database, the username, the password, okay, and connection retries. There are bunch of more properties which you can read from Flyway website, by the way. Okay, now let's just go to the important which is the scripts. Okay, so what we have done over here is, by default it's going to look at the class path and it's going to look into the directory called db.migration. You can override this path if you wish to, but by default it's going to look it over here. The naming convention which is suggested by Flyway is all the file needs to start with character V for version, and then it should start with a numeric number 1 2 3 4. Okay, you can even have like 1.1 1.2, whatever you want. Okay, it's just gonna order it and then it's gonna run in the given sequence. Okay, then you have two double underscores, and after two double underscore you have some sort of description. It's working as a kind of documentation, plus this is the information which will be added into the database. So if I take you back to the database, just remember this first file called v1 create person table.sql. So if you go back to the database, the history table, just notice what it has done. It says version 1 extracted from the file, and then it extracted this information from this file. If I open this file for you, just notice it's nothing but a pure plain DDL file, data definition language. Yeah, it's creating a table called person with couple of columns. That's about it. No magic is going on, but everything is kind of automatically managed for us over here. Now you must be wondering, what is a big deal over here? Okay, now the big deal here is, if you like to add or make more changes to database, what you simply do is you create a brand new file, and then you will notice, okay, how we apply the changes. So if I, let's say, copy this file and add a version v3, and let's say add a new person, or I don't need to say add the new person all the same. You can simply say add person 2. You can call it whatever you want, doesn't really matter. So this is my insert statement. Okay, my DML at this point, I'm simply gonna call it person 2. Simple. If I go back to my Maven command, and I'm just going to rerun the command. I'm not going to pass any additional property or parameter at this point. Let's run it. What plugin will do, it will first try to analyze what is the current state of the database. So it's gonna skip file 1, file 2, because those changes are already applied. It knows by reading the history table, and is simply going to apply or pick up the third file. As you can see from the log message over here, it's saying creating version public 2, okay, migrating schema public to version 3, blah blah blah, because this is saying I know up to 2 I already have the changes. Okay, now after that it's saying successfully applied one migration to schema public, now at version v3, which is correlating to our file at the background. Okay, If I take you back to our database, if I refresh it, there we are, a new column has been added. Now the beauty of this thing over here is you can check in these files, these SQL files, to Git or source control. It doesn't really matter, you don't even need to remember it. You can just give all these files to your IT team or CI/CD pipeline or whatever, and they simply need to execute these Flyway commands using command line, Docker or Java program or whatever, and it will automatically apply the changes. Okay, if it needs to create the whole database, it will create it for you. If it needs to only add one table, it will add it. If it needs to add some maybe version number 3 or very last file, it will do it for you. You don't need to remember what is the current state of your database. So that problem has been solved for us over here. Yeah, so as you can see, what I simply did, I just created this particular file. Okay, if I just increase the size for you so you can see it. All right, third option we had was Java program. So how do you write a Java program? Okay, so let's try to write a simple, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to write a service. Okay, so we can try to kind of execute from outside. Otherwise it can be part of your Spring Boot start as well. Okay, it doesn't really matter. So I have just created a Flyway controller over here, so we can maybe try to do it manually, but the point I'm trying to show here is how to do it through Java. You have this class called Flyway. Okay, before you do that, by the way, you will have to add a dependency, and this dependency is called org.flywaydb Flyway core. That's about it. Once you have added this dependency, you are good to apply the same changes using Java API. Okay, there we are. This is the class which we have written over here. This is a simple REST endpoint which is simply saying Flyway v1 do migrate. Okay, so if somebody invokes it, it's just gonna do the migration for us. Of course you're not gonna expose it externally, but this is just this example over here. So I'm simply saying, at this point my migration started. This is the API. You build it, flyway.configure, you give the data source, okay, which is our Postgres. You give the port number, host, and the database name, username, password, and you simply load it. Okay, at this point it will be loaded. The API has been loaded, i.e. this object is now ready to do or ready to execute the commands for us. Then you simply say flyway.migrate, for example, or you can do flyway.info, flyway.clean, baseline, whatever. All those 6 or 7 commands which I shown you earlier. Yeah, so if I start my Spring application, so if I simply start my Spring Boot tutorial application, okay, so our application has been started. Nothing special is going on at the moment. If I simply take you to the database, we still have the Flyway history, we still have the person table. Let me open Postman so I can try to invoke this particular command. So here is our lovely Postman. Close this. Do we want to change system info? Okay, cancel this one. Migrate. Yeah, so I was actually experimenting earlier, so good news is it's pretty much ready to go for us. So what we are saying please run this service. If I execute it now, it got the answer saying, okay, migration started at this point, migration finished at this point. Yeah, all good. Over here again, you can see a little bit more log saying, okay, the current version is at this point. So basically it didn't do anything. So the good thing with Flyway is, if the database state is already at certain level, it will not have any harm. Okay, it will just simply say, okay, you are already up to date. Now let's do one thing. Let's be cheeky. If I now go to pre-existing table and I try to add a new entry over here, okay, let's call it 2. Okay, do you think it will work or not? Do you think Flyway will know that, oh, you know what, this, I just need to add this one is there? Answer is no. Flyway doesn't like it. Flyway is saying, if I have picked up a file called version 1 or version 2, you cannot make changes to that file. It's not allowed, because I don't know, I'm not going to compare the files. So what it simply does, it creates a hash of your file, stores in the history table, as you noticed earlier, and then next time when you try to do something cheeky, it's gonna complain. Okay, so if I take you back to our Maven plugin, okay, Java will be failing with the same thing, but it's easier to kind of run Maven just for demonstration purposes. Can you see? It's saying I'm not happy with version 2, because you already applied that previously and now you're trying to kind of make the changes. So please undo your thing, or some sort of corruption has happened. There are various ways to overcome this problem. One, you should not be touching your file. Okay, second could be, maybe you can clean the database if it's permitted, and then you can rerun, so it will just take care of that thing. Okay, last but not least, as I promised to you, we can run all these things through Docker container as well. So this is the last thing I want to show, and after that, I think this video has gone a little bit longer than I expected, and so you can just play in your own time. So this is how you run a Docker container, and it will do exactly same thing for us. Okay, so you have Docker container. This is the command. You can do migrate, you can do clean, whatever you want. You give the location of your stuff, okay, how it should be connecting, what how it should be applying the changes, etc., etc. So just to prove it's working, what I'm simply going to do is I'm going to drop these two tables for us at the moment. Okay, so by the way, as soon as I drop history table, Flyway would not remember. It doesn't know. It always start by reading the history table. If it doesn't find the history table, it will create it. So what I'm going to simply do is, if I go back to our lovely terminal, if I go to cd src main docker, okay, and if I simply say docker compose up -d and Flyway. Okay, so if I just simply say Flyway, it's saying healthy, it started, okay, and it should have done all this magic, i.e. it should have executed everything under Flyway SQL. So if you notice, we cleaned everything, but if we refresh now, it should bring everything okay, which it has. History table is saying creating, add people, add person 2. What we are expecting now, we have one Jaswinder, we have another, and we have person 2. Okay, so it basically now picked up all the files under the db.migration folder, and it has applied for us. All right, I think that's pretty much I wanted to show you. I hope you enjoyed this session and you can appreciate why database migration is so important, especially the versioning of database scripts is so important. Okay, and using tools like Flyway, Liquidbase, you can automate all these things. Okay, if you like the video, please give me thumbs up, leave some sort of feedback, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.